Here's what happened. It's my first time heading over to the highway to get on the ramp. And I remember my driving instructor being in the passenger seat, Mr. Green. He's like, let me know what the deal is and what's up. I got my two friends from high school that are back there that are hanging out and also talking shit. And so I'm like nervous, pumped, ready to go, but also really, really nervous deep down. I got both hands on the steering wheel and I'm sweating, gripping it and getting closer to the ramp. And it feels like slow motion getting closer. And then as I get on the ramp, I'm about to go and then merge onto the highway. I'm seeing the cars zooming by. I'm like, oh shit, how am I going to do this? And so I feel that intense pressure and this fear bubbling up. But then I'm listening to my instructor. He's letting me know what the deal is. I'm using my signal. I merge. It's like, feels really slow to merge onto the highway. And then I move forward and I'm on it. I'm pumped. I'm like, hell yeah, I did that. And then what has happened is I put in more reps. Then now years go by. And I think about now driving and getting on the ramp, getting on the highway. It feels like autopilot for a habit. I don't have, for my nervous system, I don't have this intense amount of pressure that builds in my body and this fear that bubbles up where then I can, where I'm gripping the wheel. So what has happened there is the repetitions has created familiarity for my nervous system, which has built safety in what to expect. And so with change, your nervous system wants to feel safe before it can let go. And that's where this holding on feeling of pressure and the stress can cause you to not move faster towards what you want. And what I want to talk about with you is how you can understand your style of default for popping these, what I call pressure balloons in the body. Understanding that, because there's 4 I'm going to go through with you, to be able to then figure out with clarity, the more you understand your style that you go to default, you can figure out now what's not working for yourself and figure out new strategies to be able to deal with moving forward faster towards what you want. This is Make Burnout Extinct. I'm Robert David Weeks. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. And if you haven't done it yet, you can subscribe and follow the show for the latest episodes. We're going to get present now together because I know you've had a lot of shit and challenges in building this business that you're dealing with. And then you got a lot of the challenges afterwards. And so this is the time for you because I know how much you want to take care of everyone else as well. And by you being here, it's a moment to celebrate for you giving yourself this time. And then right now, getting present. This is for you. So deep inhale through the nose, and then I'm going to exhale out through the mouth. So here we go together. Deep inhale. And then release. Stretch it out. Yeah. Getting back into this space here together. Because again, by taking care of you, you're able to then take care of other people even more. Got 2 commitments for you before we dive in. First commitment is to continue to grow this show. It's been incredible for this growth since now getting close to 10 months since the launch of the show. And it wouldn't be possible without your support. So thank you. The second commitment I have for you is to be honest with you, to set the expectations of what it takes to make burnout extinct based off my own personal experience, insights that I gather, and then with guests that are coming on and sharing their insights. Because for me, one of my main reasons for hitting my burnout after that social media conference I founded in 2018, where 500 people came together, was the amount of lying that I did. I lied a lot and I felt trapped with the intense amount of pressure that was building up. This is where that idea of pressure balloons comes up. And so what happened was I realized my body is going to release these pressure balloons in some way because I've hit my max for capacity if I don't consciously do that. And for my body, that is hitting burnout. And that's what happened for me. And so it's something I don't want to have happen for you. I believe there's so much unnecessary pain and suffering that can come with that. And I don't want you to have a one-way ticket to hitting burnout. And so this is going to be the time for you to, through this conversation and all the other conversations, is to the best of my ability to be honest with you for what to expect. And when I make those mistakes that can come up because nobody's perfect, that I'll be able to make sure to take responsibility for that and share that with you too. So thank you for being here. Let's dive in. What I want to talk about is how you can't move faster towards what you want if you're still holding on to the pressure and this fear, and having fear being the driver's seat as you're building this business. Because what can happen is when you have fear that is in the driver's seat, then you then it becomes a lot harder to move towards what you want and the quality of life that you want and how you are hoping this business is going to be able to support that. Especially being in it for a few years, you know what that pressure can feel like. And so what I want to do today is go through 4 ways that your nervous system, for how you respond to stress, how it can happen. We all have the capabilities for all 4 of these, but there is usually 1 or 2 that is your dominant response to the stress that you experience, and meaning the pressure balloons that can come up, that can form in your day within your body. Is how you can imagine it, where you're dealing with moments of stress based off of the potential of the different fears that are coming up for you. And then you feel that pressure. And what can happen is, if you don't address those pressure balloons, they can get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that could be, for the big pressure balloons, the fear of not being enough, the fear of what happens if you do make mistakes. Or it could be the smaller pressure balloons, which is, hey, I got to get that email sent that I've been pushing off for a day. I got to make sure I send that to the client. And that could be that little moment of pressure that comes up for the stress and having to take care of it. And so that's how you can look at it. But what I'm going to do is go through those 4 stress responses that can happen for the body. But you got to understand that your nervous system is looking for these perceived threats, and you have a certain belief system put in place that helps to determine what is a threat and what isn't, or what is a perceived threat. Because in our modern day, there is a lot of things that may not be immediate threat to us, but then we perceive it as a threat, which could be someone telling us something that really they didn't like, and so we have this fear of not being accepted, and so we take that as a perceived threat of, oh man, I really want to make sure that I please them and that they don't think of me in that way. And then your body responds through the action of what you do. So when the pressure builds and it isn't consciously released, it leads to burnout. I mean, that's what can happen for the body. And how I define burnout is a major life transition that is forced on you by your body. And so that is where, having to close down the business, get out of the game. You have other situations that could come up with that, but I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to make those choices for yourself, not be forced into something. So this is a moment to reflect for yourself of what has been not working in the business for you. And then when you take a moment to think about that right now, you just have 1 or 2 that comes up, or if you can, write that down. And then what also is missing in your life because of the amount of work that you're putting into your business? What is also a struggle right now for you? If that's with relationships, if that's health and fitness. Because what I want to remind you is that the business is just one part of your life. And it's really important to remember that. But then when it comes to burnout and hitting burnout is interconnected with all areas of life. And so what isn't working in one area is going to seep into other areas of life. And by understanding it more and creating that clarity, it's going to be really helpful for you as we're moving forward through this. So just take that time to reflect. You could have 1 or 2 that come up. And now what I want to do is go through the 4 different styles, or 4 ways that your nervous system can respond. You can think about them as styles if you like. I think about it as styles, but it's like 4 responses of how you deal with these pressure balloons that can come up. And again, the pressure is a signal from the body. What fills up in that pressure balloon, how you can imagine it for a body, is that stress. So the 4 is fight, the flight, freeze, fawn. And so for the nervous system, what can happen is you can experience for your default of dealing with these pressure balloons with a fight response. And so what that looks like is, in the business, it could look like overworking, trying to control all the different aspects, pushing harder, and even the micromanaging of what the tasks that got to get done if you have team members. And so for the sensations in the body, what can come up is you're feeling frustrated. You feel this intense urgency of like you got to get stuff done. And you could be pissed. There could be anger there. And what your response could be to these pressure balloons is that you're trying to like regain that control by conquering whatever is the pressure, the pressure balloon, the challenge. But what happens is that it can have an effect that can uh, hurt other areas of life, where you feel like you're behind on a launch, or you have a new service that you're trying to prepare for. So what happens is you can cancel all your plans and just like fucking grind it out nonstop, even though your body is telling you that it needs a moment to reset, to rest. Like it's you ignoring those emotions, pushing them down, saying, I'll get to them later. And what usually happens for the pattern is you keep saying, I'll get to it later, I'll get to it later, I'll get to it later, I'll get to it later to actually have a moment to rest and recover. And then what happens is you hit burnout because there's always going to be a challenge. The work will never stop. And that's something I learned from one of my mentors, is that the work never stops. It's for you to decide when it stops. And it's to remind yourself that it doesn't have to be a moment where you take weeks of a break. It could be just a few minutes to have a moment of reset for your body, to understand to release that emotion out, and then to be able to get back into it for the tasks and get after it. So that's really important, because the default could be, I got to fight, I got to power through this and make it happen. But you also have to realize the context of it, of like, hey, am I feeling safe right now? Am I all right? Do I have any immediate threats coming at me? Or is this all perceived threats that are happening? So that's the first one. Second one I want to share with you is the flight response. So what that can look like is avoiding tasks that actually would move the business forward. This is where you start new projects, you escape the hard one. So you're trying all these new projects, you're doing the busy work, reorganizing. That could be reorganizing the website, reorganizing the your notes, rather than doing the tasks that you're avoiding right now that would actually move the business forward, and then help you to move faster towards what you want. So what it can feel like is this like restlessness, like you just like restlessness, and then there could be procrastination, but you're masking it as productivity with the busy work, right? That comes up where you're just like doing a bunch of different stuff that really doesn't need to happen right now, and you could actually focus on the thing that you're avoiding. So what you're trying to do in that moment for the stress response is that you're escaping the discomfort by running away from the threat. So you're not even trying to deal and fight for the challenge that the pressure balloon that's coming up, which could be, hey, I need to get more money coming in for the end of the month with the business. So what is going to be the tasks that would actually help me move that? And instead of doing that, you could go and say, I got to reorganize my notes. Like that could be a simple way to think about it. And so it could be also a hard conversation is another one, where you got to have that hard conversation, but you're just avoiding it. And so instead you'll work on the website rather than have the hard conversation that needs to happen. The second one for a response, or not the second one, the third one is freeze. So with freeze, what that can look like is shutting down. It's like you have this brain fog. I think about it as sloth mode. You're just getting into that sloth mode. You're just staring at the screen. That could be where, you just feel overwhelmed by the decision. This is where you might completely stop everything work related and just like hang out and be like, I got to just chill right now. And what it feels like is it can be numbing. It can be like a stuckness that comes up, or like time's just like slipping away. You like look at your watch, you're like, oh shit, I can't believe I've been hanging out here, not really doing anything for the last 2 to 3 hours. And so what could happen with that is like you got invoices they got to send out, and then you're saying, I'll get to it later. Hours pass by, nothing gets done. The final one that I want to share with you is the fawn response. So what that looks like is that people pleasing. This is where you're like overcommitting. That's where the calendar can fill up with a bunch of stuff that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the moving you forward in the business and for what you want out of the business. It's looking towards the needs of others and then by doing that, you're abandoning your own needs. So it's not being able to do both, where it supports both needs, yours and theirs, but you're sacrificing your own well-being in a lot of situations, and your own peace of mind for making sure that others' needs are met. And so what that can feel like is this anxiety around being rejected. There can be a guilt for saying no to opportunities that come your way. So you always feel like you're constantly saying yes to things that really you wouldn't want to do. And it's taking away time from the things that actually can move you forward in the business. And so what's happening here is you're trying to please the potential threat and stay safe. And again, going back to that fear of not being loved. So the example when it comes to building the business, what could happen is you're saying, again, yes to clients that you know aren't aligned. That could be one because you don't want them to be disappointed or you don't want to reject them. Or it's just going and if it's hanging out with friends or going and accepting new opportunities that just really don't make a whole lot of sense for where you're at right now, for what you want in the business and your overall quality of life, and not being able to say no. So those are the four. Now what I want to do, we're going to take a moment, going to take a deep inhale through the nose, exhale out through the mouth, because that was a lot. So here we go, deep inhale. And then release it out through the mouth. Woo. Some thoughts that you could have this thought that comes up like, oh shit, I didn't realize this is the one I go to for default with dealing with these pressure balloons that can come up in my body. So what is that one or two that is your dominant that you would say for dealing with stressful situations? For me, I look at as the two that come up for me is flight. So I know that I will either distract myself, through social media. I'll go scroll and check out other stuff, rather than focusing on sending out the messages I need to send out, actually put the content out on social media, or I'll freeze is my other one. Like I'll just in the moment freeze. I'll be like, I can't do anything. And that can come up for me with feeling disconnected from my body, feeling disconnected from the present moment. I can feel my mind is like pinballing all over the place. That can come up. And so because of that, I feel overwhelmed. And then I freeze and I don't move forward. And so what's been happening for me is I've noticed that, and I've noticed how that's affected me, where I don't actually focus on the things that are going to move me forward. And then because of that, I build even more of these pressure balloons in my body. And so it's been consciously working on releasing these pressure balloons in a different way, which would be for me focusing on putting the reps in for fight response is how I would look at it. The fight response of dealing with the challenge head on, facing it. That creates a lot of fear because it's unfamiliar for my nervous system. And so starting small, putting the reps in, being able to say, what's one task that I got to get done today that would move me forward in the business? Then you could lead to three. What are the three tasks that could help move me forward? And that's a way that has been really helpful to build that momentum, to face it. Or when I get a message from someone that's like a hard conversation that I have to have, or they're asking a question, I can go into the fight mode, or I can go even into the fawn mode of like the pleasing of other people while still honoring my own needs. But it's the response of like, okay, I'm going to respond back because they're looking for an answer right now, and I do have the time and the space to be able to do it. And so let me do that and send it out. So it's taking like bits and pieces of it. It's not going to those extremes for the stress response that could then be really that could really hurt my progress and cause me to stay stuck even more. But it's what can help me to move faster towards what I want while still responding to the stress with how my nervous system is going. It has the ability to be able to respond to these, which goes back to these four. And so instead of just like trying to go against how my body works when I'm dealing with these pressure balloons, it's being able to consciously shift how the body responds. And with more repetitions, it can change how I default to it. And so that's something to remember for you is what out of all of these pressure balloons and how you respond to them, what is the effect it's having for you in building the business? Can you relate to the fight mode where you feel overworked and you're just like, you feel this constant sense of urgency and you feel like things have to get done ASAP or everything's going to fall apart? Is that starting to affect you for this pressure balloon? Or is it the freeze mode where you just are sitting around and you're realizing you're just not doing the actual work that needs to be done? And you are ignoring it and just hanging out and you feel overwhelmed and that brain fog is building and you feel like you're in sloth mode. So from there, when you can understand your style, you can start to now take action towards shifting the response, the stress response for your body. And what will happen is at the beginning, you'll go back to your defaults, but you have to figure out what are the habits that can help you to recognize what's going on and then to make a shift and move towards a new way of responding. So, how you can think about it, for one example, would be, as I talked about, I could freeze. That could be a moment where I get overwhelmed. And so, what I can recognize is when I have a pressure balloon that fills up with stress that you can imagine that fills up in the body, I can first understand what is the belief that is causing this pressure balloon to fill up in the first place. And that goes back to what I talked about with the new beliefs in the last episode. But first, identifying what is the belief right now that is causing me to have this response. Recognize that, and that could be a first step. So even just continuing to go to the default, if it's fight, the flight, fawn, freeze, whichever one's your default, or one or two that are your defaults, first understand the belief behind it. It could be the belief of the fear of not being enough if you don't achieve and work hard and grind it through. And so that's where you could feel like by resting or taking a few minutes to reset, that's weakness. And so that's why you just push through with any challenges that you're dealing with. You just move automatically. Someone says, hey, we got to get this done. What do? Instead of taking maybe just 5 seconds to settle into it, you just immediately say what's on your mind, right? But that you could have had a better strategy if you'd taken that moment to to feel grounded and then respond back. So that's one example to think about. So once you have that belief down, now it's what's the new belief that you could bring in that could start to help you to shift how you respond. So the new belief could be, instead of thinking I'm the fear of not being enough because you're overworking, it's recognizing it's possible for me to be enough here by actually resting and creating a better strategy to have that moment to think and critically think about what's going on. So then when I deliver the information to this other person, I'm actually going to help them out because they'll save them time and save the potential or avoid the potential mistakes that could happen by me just initially saying my initial response. And so it's like you're working with two different beliefs there of like, it's possible for me to be enough just by resting. And then actually what happens is by resting, I can then create a better strategy and then share that with this person so they avoid less mistakes along the way for the changes that have to happen. And then now it goes to what can be the habit. Going back to yesterday, I talked about this. What's the habit, or not yesterday, the last episode. What's the habit that you can do to put the reps in to reinforce that change and support that new belief, to get that new belief to become familiar for the nervous system, where then you are able to feel safe in that new belief, and then you can from there pop the big pressure balloon of this old belief, and that can open up more capacity in the body to hold more and for you to grow and move forward faster towards what you want. And so that habit could be giving yourself 3 seconds to take a deep breath in through the nose, exhale it out through the mouth like we're doing now. So deep inhale. We do that together and release. Release it out. Get settled in and then respond to what someone asked of you, or respond to the pressure balloon, the challenge that you have to face in the business. But give yourself that 3-second moment to do that. So that's just one example. Another one could be going out for a 10-minute walk. If you're feeling like you're in a flight response and you're pinballing all over the place doing busy work, it could be like, okay, let me go walk because I'm still creating movement. I'm walking. But what we'll do is I'll remind myself in this moment that I'm in this response of flight. And how do I want to show up and respond with this pressure balloon that I'm feeling? Okay, what could be one task? This is the habit, is you do the 10-minute walk. And then from the 10-minute walk, you're going to tell yourself, I'm going to figure out the one task that's actually going to move it forward for the business. And let me start small and figure that out and then complete it. And that can help you to then move faster towards what you want. And by doing that, you then pop the balloon, the pressure balloon that you're feeling of bouncing all over the place and distracting yourself, because you now have a plan of that task you're going to get done. And so you pop what could be a small pressure balloon, but then you're putting more reps in to eventually pop that bigger pressure balloon, which is that belief that caused you to get into that flight response in the first place, right? So that's what gets really cool about this is as you continue to move forward and you pop these pressure balloons and you understand your specific habits combinations based off of which style is your one or two go-tos for your default of dealing with the stress, for the stress moments that come up and these pressure balloons that come up. That's what gets really exciting is then you can specifically figure out your right way. Because I go back to the quote of mentor of mine, John Butcher, which is there is no one right way, but there is a right way for you. And that's figuring it out. This is the time for you to figure that out. And so what you can do is for moving forward as a recap is being able to ask yourself, which one is your dominant stress response, the one or two? Then from there, what's one pressure balloon that's building because of this stress response? Meaning, what is something not working right now in the business, or in another area of your life because of what's happening in the business? And so that big pressure balloon could be the fear that you're not going to be focusing on. It's going to be the fear that you won't take care of your health as you're building the business, or that it's not possible. That could be a belief. So how do you change that? How do you start changing that is adding a new belief in there. And so then it goes to what's one big decision that you can make this week to start to align what's going on in the business with the life that you want based off of the pressure balloons. And then it's remembering what might be holding you back is likely, or what you're holding on to is most likely what's holding you back. And so it's understanding what is that pressure, and from that pressure, what's the message behind that pressure? Why is that there? Because the more you understand, less fear grows. And by understanding and having that clarity, it's going to become easier to move faster towards what it is you want. And what I want to tell you, if you haven't heard yet today, I believe in you. You have the capabilities to be able to listen to what your body's trying to tell you with the signals, and then make those changes to the behavior and to the habits. And it's giving yourself that space. You have the capabilities. And it's a reminder that these nearly 40 trillion cells of your body are on your team, there to support you what you want. But you got to remind yourself to listen and then respond. You got this.